I have decided, even though Christian fundamentalists really rub me the wrong way, in much the same way the Orthodox Jews really rub me the wrong way, that I think I should take on the um, task of learning from Christians and, you know, maybe even some Jews to better my understanding of metaphysics. Now, I do understand, Christians, especially when it comes to the more messianic type, that these people, they have uh, a lot of information when it comes to the Hebrew language, and it can point to things that most people wouldn't even think about in the Bible. One example is Bereshith, and yes, it is pronounced Bereshith, not Bereshit. A lot of people think it's Bereshit. It's not Bereshit, it's Bereshith. And the reason why it's pronounced that way, as Rabbi David Barheim has said, who is another very dogmatic type individual when it comes to these type of things, is that, well, it doesn't really translate as in the beginning, now does it? If you really study it, it says in the summit, because, think about it. Where was the beginning before God emanated? And yes, God emanated the heavens and the earth. Where was time? There was no time. Time had been non-existent. So Bereshith does not mean in the beginning. It means in summit, in the starting point of creation, in the before anything, before Ain Sof, before that. So, nothing really had existed, in a literal sense of the word, as material, as objects. Elohim is all there was. So the word Bereshith does not mean in the beginning. In the circles of metaphysics that I'm familiar with, what we describe God, how we describe God is God is the beginning and the end, and the stage before the beginning and the stage after the end. Not that God has time, or that God has been setting up there as an old man for eternity and then all of a sudden decided they wanted to create something. There was no time. There was just God. So God manifested, in the summit of creation. God brought about time. And this is one thing we got to understand about the Hebrew language, and this is one thing we got to understand about the English. English has metaphysical terms within it. It has had metaphysical terms within it since before the time of King James, but the problem is that it's not a metaphysical-oriented language. So when something like the word ruach is translated, it is misinterpreted. Because in English, Hebrew is a contextual language. I'm not going to say it's not a contextual language, but English has a bunch of different words for a bunch of different things, and it tries to fill in the gaps in ways that are unproductive, because Hebrew is more contextual than English. And in a word like ruach, a lot of people don't understand. It means consciousness in a sense, but it also means air in a sense. So how can air and consciousness, what's the deal with that? Why is it the same word? Well, a better word to describe it is, I guess you could say, God potential, because our spirit is God potential. When we breathe in air, what does that air do to our body? It nourishes our body, right? With the prana, and it gives us potential, consciousness. So, and if you don't believe me, you hold your breath for 30 minutes and see what happens. What it does is it gives us that potential for awareness. God is an awareness that's actually even above, in the deeper metaphysics, that I'm familiar with, taught by Nehemiah Davis. Consciousness is actually below God. God is actually above consciousness. God is an awareness above consciousness, because what we refer to as consciousness is an awareness that exists within bodies. It could be a galaxy body, it could be a planetary body, it could be a earthly body. But what matters is that we're referring to a consciousness. We're referring to a body of awareness, of cosmic awareness. Cosmic awareness is above consciousness. Consciousness is just a bubble that we use for cosmic awareness. Now, the problem with English is it doesn't understand that. And Christianity, what it does, the reason why nobody knows the truth about the Bible, is because Christians and Jews all over the world, they will take this beautiful metaphysical language that came from Canaanite and other Semitic languages that has all these metaphysical things in it, and they will put their new thought forms on it. They'll put their thought forms on it based on the crap they've been taught. And what a lot of people don't understand is that everything's been westernized. Even the so-called Jews that are said to have never left Israel, they were gradually westernized over time by the Iranians and the British people. And when we brought the people from Israel back to their place where they came from, we took the Jews and we brought them back to Israel. They had a bastardized Western understanding of the text also. All the metaphysics has been completely drained out of the Bible because people will read it and they won't recognize the words. They won't recognize what they actually mean. People are absurd. They actually think mayim means water, and what it actually means is fluidity. Well, you think a man was standing. You think in the beginning a ghost was hovering over the water. Please. These Jews and Christians have completely bastardized the Bible. They've completely ruined it. They've completely wrecked the meaning behind it. The Jewish language is quite a vague language, and it's also quite a contextual language. So you got to use knowledge and you got to use metaphysics to really determine what's being talked about. And I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this to I'm going to save the Bible from this lunacy that they've turned it into. Because That's what will happen. People will read these things. They'll develop thought forms. The thought forms will be pasted onto the book. It'll be pasted on the people around them. You ever feel guilty around a Christian? It's the same nonsense. It's their thought forms being sent out, and they'll tell you it's the Holy Spirit. Trust me, if it was the Holy Spirit, you'd know. You'd know. Okay? Some of the Indians who read the Bhagavad Gita every day, they understand. They know the Holy Spirit better than some of the Christians do. They know the Holy Spirit better than some of the Jews do. And yet we're led to believe this type of BS, that their main message is that I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one gets to the Father but by me. Despite that, if you actually read the text, that's the only place in the whole text where Jesus is actually talking about himself in some big manner. Likelihood, in all actuality, it was never in the text, and if it was in the text to begin with, the understanding could have been that you have to enter the Christ center in order to enter the Father, which is the crown chakra, what we refer to as the right? We refer to that as our higher self, but we got many aspects. We got a primary aspect, which is the soul, the spirit. And then we got a second aspect, which is the soul, and then we got a third aspect of some kind, which is, I think, is like the higher self or something like that, or maybe the higher self is above the soul or something like that. And we're in a fourth aspect body. We're somewhere. I might have butchered that. I don't know. You have to go to Nehemiah Davis to actually remember what it actually says there. But that's just the thing. We're fourth aspect beings. So if we think we're going to read the Bible, we're going to understand every single thing in it. It's without studying metaphysics or without a teacher or something, we got another thing coming. Because most people don't even know the true history of mankind, and we're going to dive into that. I'm going to dive into that. I'm going to dive into the real, science behind that, and the real science behind the metaphysics. It's time to reclaim God. Those people in that church have molested his teachings. We're going to unmolest the goddamn teachings, like Jesus wanted when he first came here and taught those teachings. Shalom, namaste. I'll be with you when the time comes.